The scent of pine and roasted turkey hangs heavy, thick with forced cheer. Carols jingle softly from the speakers, a mocking soundtrack to the silence pressing in on me. My sister giggles, unwrapping a box tied with a perfect red bow. My brother-in-law murmurs thanks, pulling a new watch from green paper. One by one, names are called, packages are handed out, smiles are exchanged. The ritual unfolds like a well-rehearsed play, a warm circle of light and giving. And I am standing just outside the circle, bathed in the same light, but feeling the absolute, piercing cold of being unseen. My mother, her face flushed from the oven's heat and maybe a glass of wine, beams at my sister. My father, settling back into his armchair, chuckles at my brother-in-law's reaction. Their hands move, offering gifts. Their eyes meet those of everyone in the room. Everyone but me. My name is not called. There is no package waiting. The stack of brightly wrapped boxes under the tree dwindles. The pile of discarded paper and ribbon grows. The air fills with happy exclamations. And the space where my gift should be, where my name should have been spoken, is vast and empty. It's not just an oversight. It feels deliberate. A physical absence carved out just for me in the middle of their perfect family picture. The silence around my own presence screams louder than the carols. It is Christmas dinner, and I have been erased. If you've ever felt like the odd one out, the invisible person in the room, I see you. Let me know where you're watching from and what time it is. And if you haven't already, please subscribe. It helps me more than you know. Life before that moment wasn't a fairy tale, but it was steady, predictable. I was the one who lived a little further away, the one who maybe didn't call every Sunday, but who was always there when it mattered. The dependable one. The responsible one. The one they knew they could count on. Especially when things got tough. And things had gotten tough years ago. Really tough. The house. This house. The one we're sitting in now. The one filled with the smell of pine and betrayal. It was the heart of our family, or so they always said. Where holidays were hosted, where childhood memories were made, where they planned to grow old. But a decade back, that heart was failing. Bad investments, unexpected medical bills, the kind of perfect storm that wipes out savings and threatens everything. They were facing foreclosure. Losing the house meant losing their future, their security, their identity. I was younger then, just starting out, but I'd been careful, saved aggressively. I wasn't rich, not by any stretch, but I had liquidity they didn't. They came to me, not asking for a handout, not exactly, but explaining the situation, their voices tight with panic. They needed a significant amount. More than I was comfortable with, honestly. Enough to pay off the most pressing debts, enough to restructure the mortgage, enough to buy them time, stability, enough to save the house. We drew up papers. Not because I didn't trust them, the thought was almost sacrilegious, but because I believed in doing things properly, clearly. It wasn't a simple loan. It was a partnership of sorts. My money cleared the debts, secured the mortgage. In return, I had a legally documented stake, a significant financial interest in the property. The agreement outlined terms, conditions. My contribution wasn't a gift. It was an investment that protected their asset and was meant to protect mine long-term. It was solid, binding. We all signed. There were handshakes, tears of relief, promises of how they'd make good, how this saved us, how I was a hero. For years after that, life went back to normal. The crisis passed. The house was safe. Holidays happened here. I visited. We talked. They seemed grateful. My relationship with my siblings was typical, a mix of affection and minor annoyances. I was part of the family unit, maybe the quiet observer sometimes, but definitely in the unit. My investment, my stake in the house, was rarely discussed, the crisis fading into the background, replaced by everyday life. It was just understood. The house was safe because of me. And, in a way, it was now partly mine on paper, in reality, tied up in complex legal terms that felt distant and abstract compared to the warmth of family gatherings. I never thought about the legal papers. Why would I? It was family. Then came that Christmas dinner. The carols, the pine, The gifts for everyone else. The empty space where I stood. The immediate aftermath was a blur of polite conversation I wasn't truly part of. I smiled when expected, nodded along, but inside, a cold knot was forming. It wasn't just the lack of a gift. People forget things. But this felt different. The way they avoided my eyes when they were handing out presents. The slight, almost imperceptible pause before moving on to the next person after skipping me. It felt deliberate. Later, when most people had left, just family remained. The air was thick with unspoken things. I tried, gently, to pierce the bubble. "Everything okay?" I asked my mother, my voice casual, light. She busied herself clearing plates. "Fine, dear, just tired." I looked at my father. He was watching the news, pretending to be engrossed. "It was a nice dinner," I said, pushing a little. "Seems everyone got some great stuff this year." Silence. "Except me, I guess," I added, trying for dry humor. It landed with a thud. My father finally looked up, a flicker of something I couldn't read in his eyes. Annoyance? Guilt? "Oh, well, he mumbled, turning back to the screen. "You're hard to buy for." Hard to buy for? The person who appreciated practical gifts, who always said don't make a fuss? This was a flimsy excuse, insulting in its transparency. It wasn't that they didn't know what to buy. It was that they chose to buy nothing. For me. The next few weeks were a slow, agonizing descent into confusion and hurt. I called. My calls weren't returned promptly. When we did speak, conversations were short, strained. They were busy. They were tired. They had appointments. Excuses, always excuses. My siblings were vague, uncomfortable when I asked about it. "Oh, you know how Mom and Dad are," my sister said dismissively. But I didn't know. This wasn't like them. Not this cold, unified front of exclusion. The knot in my stomach tightened. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. It wasn't just a family spat. It felt like a door had been quietly, firmly shut in my face. The house, once a symbol of my rescue, started to feel like a cage I was locked out of. The legal papers, buried in a file cabinet, suddenly felt heavy, significant. I pulled them out one rainy afternoon, the crisp paper a stark contrast to the fuzzy, confusing reality of my family. I read through the clauses, the percentages, the terms of my investment, my stake in the property. It was all there, clear and unambiguous. Why would they treat me like this when this house, their security, existed because of me? The gnawing uncertainty turned into active suspicion. The excuses were too coordinated. The silence too profound. There had to be a reason. A big one. Something that made them willing to ice me out completely. Something that made them resent my very presence, my very existence, maybe even my past help. Then, a casual comment from a distant relative at a holiday party I almost skipped. They asked how my parents were doing, mentioned hearing something about them getting their affairs in order, something about sorting out the house. What did that mean? It sounded innocent, but combined with the Christmas snub, it set off alarm bells. I started digging. Quietly. Discreetly. I accessed public records online. Checked property filings. It was tedious work, filled with jargon and dead ends. For weeks, I found nothing. Just the standard mortgage I helped them restructure still being paid. The deed in their names. My own legal document felt increasingly irrelevant, a dusty paper from a time when trust was assumed. Maybe I was overreacting. Maybe they really were just bad at buying gifts. But the feeling of being deliberately cut off persisted. It was a physical ache now, a constant low hum of anxiety and sorrow. I couldn't shake the image of the empty space under the tree. Then I found it. Not in the public records, not yet. It was a letter, accidentally forwarded to my old email address, which was still linked to some family accounts I rarely checked. A letter from a bank. A different bank than their main one. It mentioned a loan application. Secured by the property. A new loan. A large one. My blood ran cold. Why would they need a new, large loan secured by the house? Especially after I had helped stabilize everything? Unless they were leveraging the house again. And if they were, What about my stake? My legally documented investment. I dug deeper, this time focusing on financial institutions. It was harder, requiring more subtlety, leveraging old contacts, navigating privacy laws. I hired a private investigator, a discreet, gray-haired woman who asked few questions and just got results. She had access to databases I didn't. She followed leads I couldn't. What she found wasn't a single smoking gun, but a trail of breadcrumbs leading into a dark, tangled wood. My parents, it turned out, had been in new financial trouble for the past couple of years. Different reasons this time, but the outcome was the same. They needed cash. Lots of it. And the house was their only significant asset. But there was a problem. My legally documented stake. My investment wasn't just a personal agreement. It was registered. Not as a primary mortgage, but as a significant lien, a recorded interest in the property. Any new loan or sale would have to acknowledge my claim or pay it out. And paying me out would consume a huge chunk of the money they were trying to get from the new loan. So, they found a way around it. Or, they thought they had. The new loan application was based on the premise that the house was solely their asset, free and clear except for the existing mortgage I had helped them manage. They conveniently omitted any mention of my recorded interest. They were banking on the bank's paperwork, somehow missing the specific details of my older, properly filed lien. Or perhaps they planned to quickly get the new loan, use the money for whatever crisis they faced, and then deal with my claim later, perhaps hoping I would notice, or that they could somehow dispute or minimize it. It was a calculated move. A betrayal on a scale I hadn't imagined. They weren't just neglecting me emotionally, they were actively trying to defraud me, to erase my financial contribution, to use the very asset I helped save as collateral for their new problems, while cutting me out entirely. The Christmas snub suddenly made horrifying sense. It wasn't random. It was the first step in freezing me out, making me feel unwelcome, maybe hoping I'd distance myself, making it easier for them to execute their plan without my interference. They were pushing me out of the family circle so they could steal from me without consequence. The pain of the initial snub was a paper cut compared to the deep, searing wound of this discovery. My parents, the people who raised me, who I had sacrificed for, they were trying to screw me over. Legally, financially, emotionally. They were willing to burn the bridge of our relationship, probably forever, for money. The house, once a symbol of family unity and my help, was now the centerpiece of their deceit. Everything fell apart inside me. The foundation of trust once stood on crumbled. Memories twisted into something ugly. Every "I love you," every shared meal, every moment of perceived closeness felt like a lie, a performance masking this cold, calculating betrayal. I felt stupid, naive, for ever trusting them implicitly, for not keeping a closer eye on things, for thinking family was different, was sacred. The investigator confirmed the details. The new loan application was proceeding. They were close to getting the funds. If they succeeded, if the bank somehow missed my lien in their final checks, getting my money back, asserting my rights, would be a long, messy, expensive legal battle. They had set a trap, and I had walked blindly towards it, only seeing the warning signs at Christmas when they seemed so obvious in retrospect. The deepening crisis wasn't just the financial threat, it was the utter devastation of my sense of self and family. Who was I? Who were they? The people I loved were strangers, villains in my own story. I felt utterly alone, adrift in a sea of their lies. My siblings, whether complicit or just willfully ignorant, offered no refuge. The house, in my mind, became a symbol of their corruption, a poisoned chalice. I spent nights staring at the ceiling, the knot in my stomach a physical pain. The betrayal felt absolute. There seemed to be no way back, no way forward that didn't involve immense conflict and loss. Part of me just wanted to walk away, to cut my losses, emotional and financial. Let them have their poison house, their ill-gotten gains. But the thought of them getting away with it, of them profiting from destroying my trust and leveraging my help, was a bitter, unbearable pill. It wasn't just about the money anymore. It was about justice. It was about standing up for myself. It was about refusing to be their easy mark, their disposable child. One morning, I woke up and the pain had curdled into something cold and hard. The confusion was gone. The hurt was still there, a dull ache, but it was overlaid with a steely resolve. They had made their move. They had shown me who they were. Now it was my turn. I wouldn't confront them. Not yet. Not in a messy, emotional argument that they could twist or gaslight their way out of. They wanted to operate in the shadows, using legal loopholes and emotional manipulation. Fine. I would meet them in the same arena. But I would control the narrative. I would choose the time and place. And I would use their own actions against them. My goal shifted. It wasn't just about protecting my initial investment anymore. It was about turning their scheme into their undoing. I consulted with a new lawyer, a specialist in property law and financial fraud. I laid out everything, the history, the documents, the investigator's findings, the loan application details I'd obtained. He listened, his expression grim. "They've been reckless," he said, tapping a pen on my lien document. "Attempting to secure a new loan of this magnitude without disclosing or addressing your recorded interest. That borders on fraud. It certainly violates the terms of their agreement with you." We discussed options. Stopping the loan? Possible, but messy. A direct lawsuit? Long, public, emotionally draining. Then we explored the specifics of my original agreement, the terms of my lien. There were clauses about default, about remedies, about scenarios where my stake could be converted or exercised. We found a path. A quiet path under the radar, initiated because of their actions with the new loan application, which technically triggered certain conditions in my original agreement, even if they didn't realize it. It involved legal maneuvering, filings, quiet notifications sent to specific entities, leveraging the clear, unambiguous language of the agreement they had signed years ago. It was complex, requiring precision and speed. The goal? To legally assert my priority claim on the property in a way that would completely disrupt their new loan, potentially forcing the property to be sold to satisfy my claim first, leaving them with nothing from their attempted new loan, and possibly nothing at all. The timeline was tight. Their loan application was in the final stages. I had to act fast. The decision solidified. I wouldn't stop their betrayal quietly. I would let it unfold almost to the point of completion, and then I would drop the bomb. I would use their confidence, their assumption of success, against them. The stage had to be right. It had to be public enough to prevent them from easily backtracking or lying their way out of it, but intimate enough to maximize the shock and emotional impact. And what better stage than the one where it all began? Another family gathering. Another Christmas dinner. Months passed. I maintained minimal contact with my family, keeping my cards close. I perfected the art of polite distance. They seemed almost relieved by my reduced presence. My parents occasionally made stilted attempts at conversation, carefully avoiding anything of substance. They didn't know I knew. They didn't know the trap they were walking into. They were still focused on their scheme, on securing their new loan, likely seeing my absence as a helpful side effect. My lawyer worked meticulously. Papers were filed, notices sent, all within the strict parameters of the law, leveraging the clauses in my original agreement. The new loan company was notified, legally, of the prior, significant lien on the property, my lien, which complicated, if not entirely halted, their process. Simultaneously, based on the terms of my original agreement and their attempt to secure a new loan that jeopardized my interest, I initiated proceedings to exercise my rights under that agreement, effectively moving to take control of the property, either forcing a sale to recoup my investment with accrued interest and damages, or potentially taking ownership depending on the legal specifics and their response. It was quiet, relentless, legal warfare waged in the background while I smiled and exchanged platitudes on the phone. The second Christmas approached. The invitations went out. I accepted. They seemed surprised, maybe even a little wary. I could almost hear the questions unspoken. Was I over the gift thing? Had I forgotten?
No.
I hadn't forgotten. I had simply been preparing my own gift. A much larger, more permanent one. The day arrived. The house smelled the same, pine, turkey memory. The carols played. The family gathered, a year older, none the wiser. My parents were there, hosting, playing their roles. They seemed confident, almost smug. Perhaps their new loan was finalized. Perhaps they thought they had gotten away with it. They greeted me with forced smiles, a little too warm, a little too casual. My siblings watched me, curiosity and maybe a hint of apprehension in their eyes. They still didn't know the full extent of their parents' plan or mine. Dinner was served. I ate. I talked. I played the part of the slightly distant relative who had decided to show up after all. Inside, my heart hammered against my ribs. The air felt thick, heavy with the unspoken history in the room. I watched my parents, their faces animated as they talked to other relatives, their laughter a jarring sound against the cold fury simmering beneath my calm exterior. They had betrayed me for this. This life, in this house, built on lies and stolen trust. The moment came. Dinner was over. The transition to the living room for the gift exchange began. The tree sparkled, surrounded by presents. It was a mirror image of the scene a year ago. The same ritual, the same people, and the same intentional omission. My parents began handing out gifts. My sister, my brother, cousins, aunts, uncles. One by one, names were called, packages exchanged, happy noises filled the air. I sat quietly, a small, almost serene smile on my face. I watched them. I watched their eyes carefully avoid mine when they got to the point where they would have called my name, if they were going to. The space next to me remained empty, giftless. Just like last year. They were doing it again. A final confirmation of their intent, their contempt. They finished. My mother sighed contentedly, looking around the room. My father leaned back, a satisfied expression on his face. The room buzzed with chatter, wrapping paper flying. They had completed their performance. They had successfully iced me out, again, reinforcing their narrative, whatever it was, about why I wasn't fully part of the family anymore. They probably thought that was the end of it. Another Christmas, another successful maneuver to distance me, to make me accept my place outside their circle. But this time, I hadn't just shown up to be excluded. I waited for a lull in the conversation. It came as people started admiring their new things. My mother was talking about the difficulty of finding parking at the mall. My father was showing off a new tie. The air was relaxed, filled with the afterglow of giving and receiving. I stood up. Quietly. Everyone turned to look at me. Their expressions were a mixture of surprise and mild annoyance. What was I doing? Was I finally going to make a scene about the gift? I walked towards the tree. Not to receive, but to give. I carried nothing in my hands. I stopped in front of my parents. They looked up at me, puzzled. My mother's smile faltered. My father's eyes narrowed slightly. "Well, this has been lovely," I said, my voice clear and steady, cutting through the room's chatter. "Just like last year." Silence fell. The smiles around the room froze. My siblings exchanged nervous glances. They knew something was coming, even if they didn't know what. My mother forced a chuckle. "Yes, dear, so glad you could make it." "Me too," I said. I wouldn't have missed it. Especially not this part. I reached into the inside pocket of my jacket. I pulled out a single, thick envelope. It wasn't wrapped. There was no bow. It was plain, stark white. I held it out to my parents. My hand didn't shake. "You gave everyone a gift," I said, my voice soft now, but carrying absolute conviction. "And last year you didn't give me one." I realized my mistake. I should have come prepared. "So this year, I brought your gift." My mother looked at the envelope, then at my face, confusion warring with something else. Fear? Recognition? My father's face was a mask. "What is it?" my mother asked, her voice thin. "Open it," I said. My father reached out, his hand hesitant. He took the envelope. He looked at it like it might explode. Then, slowly, he opened it. He pulled out the contents. Paper. Legal paper. Documents. He unfolded the top document. His eyes scanned the page. The color drained from his face. Absolutely, completely drained. He looked like he'd seen a ghost. His hand started to tremble, the paper rustling faintly. My mother, watching his reaction, snatched the document from him. Her eyes darted across the page. Her breath hitched. A small, choked sound escaped her. It was the certified copy of the deed. Not their deed.
My deed.
Or rather, the legal document confirming the successful exercise of my rights under our original agreement, the document that either transferred ownership to me or legally forced an immediate sale to satisfy my claim, which now exceeded the property's value, effectively making me the controlling party, the one who decided what happened next. The result of months of quiet legal work triggered by their attempted fraud. The document proving that their attempt to cut me out had backfired spectacularly.
What?
What is this? My mother whispered, her eyes wide with panic. That, I said, my voice still quiet, but carrying the weight of everything, is the house.
Or my claim on it anyway.
It's effective immediately, based on the terms you agreed to and your recent activities. My father found his voice, a harsh, desperate sound.
What are you talking about?
This is our house. It was, I corrected gently. Years ago, you were going to lose it. I stepped in, saved it. We had an agreement. My investment, my stake, registered. Remember? They stared at me, shock giving way to dawning horror. They remembered. Of course, they remembered. They had just thought they could make me forget. Or make my legal stake disappear.
We
were just restructuring. My mother stammered, a pathetic attempt at damage control. Getting a better rate. You are taking out a massive new loan, I stated, my voice hardening, losing its softness. Secured by the house I helped save. A loan that conveniently ignored my significant, recorded interest. You were leveraging my investment, putting the asset I helped protect at risk again, for your own gain, while trying to cut me out entirely. Their silence was confirmation. The smug confidence from moments ago was utterly gone, replaced by naked fear. I found out, I continued. I found out what you were doing, what you planned. The Christmas gifts, or lack thereof. That was just the first sign. You wanted to push me away, make me irrelevant, so you could steal from me easily. Whispers started spreading through the room. Family members looked from me to my parents, their faces bewildered, appalled. My siblings looked sick. So, I said, holding their gaze, letting the full weight of my words sink in. I used the agreement you signed, the one you thought you could ignore. Your attempt to defraud me, to leverage my help against me, it triggered certain clauses.
Clauses that allow me to
secure my investment with the asset itself. I gestured to the document trembling in my mother's hand. That's the result. Your plan to cut me out led directly to this. You tried to take the house from me, financially, so I took it back legally. And then some. My father lunged forward, his face red with rage and panic. You can't do this. We're your parents. Are you? I asked, my voice ice cold. Is this how parents behave? By trying to ruin their child financially after they saved you? By icing them out and lying to their face? My mother started to cry, a theatrical wail. How could you? On Christmas. You chose the time, Mom, I said, a dry, humorless edge to my voice. You made this about Christmas last year. You sent the message. I'm just responding with a gift that accurately reflects the value of your actions. The room was chaos now. Accusations flew. My parents shouted, denied, pleaded. Family members took sides, or recoiled in horror. My siblings were caught in the middle, staring at the wreckage of our family. But I stood firm. I had prepared for this. Emotionally, legally. I had spent months in the cold, hard reality of their betrayal. Their panic, their outrage. It washed over me without penetrating. It was the predictable reaction of people caught red-handed, people who believed their entitlement was a shield against consequence. What happens now? My sister whispered, her voice trembling. I looked at the deed, then back at my parents, who were now being consoled by another relative, their faces a picture of self-pitying distress, the architects of their own downfall. Now, I said, my voice carrying across the room, My lawyers will be in touch. We'll discuss the terms of the transition. The house will be sold. My claim will be satisfied. Anything left over? Well, we'll see. Anything left over. Based on the value, my claim with accrued interest and damages likely consumed most, if not all, of the property's worth. They wouldn't get their new loan money. They wouldn't have the house. They would have nothing from their scheme. Less than nothing, considering the legal costs they'd likely face. They had reached for everything and ended up losing the very thing they started with. I didn't feel triumph, not pure, joyful triumph anyway. There was a cold satisfaction. Yes, a sense of justice served, of having defended myself and won against incredible odds and emotional manipulation. But it was mixed with a profound, aching sadness. I had destroyed something irreversible. My family, as I knew it, was gone, shattered like a dropped ornament. I left shortly after, walking out into the cold night air, leaving the shouting and the shattered remains of the family behind. The snow fell softly, muffling the sounds from the house. I got in my car, the silence inside a stark contrast to the storm I'd left behind. Driving away, the house became smaller in my rearview mirror, the warm glow from its windows a cruel mockery. It wasn't a home anymore.
It was a battleground.
A symbol of betrayal and self-preservation. The legal process was exactly as messy as my lawyer predicted, but ultimately successful. The documentation was clear. My claim was undeniable. The house was sold. My initial investment, along with years of accrued interest and costs associated with uncovering their fraud and executing the legal action, was recouped. There was nothing left for my parents. Their attempt to gain significantly by cutting me out resulted in them losing everything they had tied up in the property. The new loan never materialized for them. Their scheme had not only failed, it had cost them their home. I never spoke to my parents again, not really. There were angry voicemails, pleading emails from intermediaries, attempts to twist the story, to paint me as cruel, heartless, ungrateful. I didn't respond. There was nothing left to say. They had made their choice when they decided to betray me. I had simply reacted, defended myself, used their own weapons, paper and law and calculated timing, against them. The money from the sale sits in an account. It feels heavy, tainted. It's not just money. It's the price of a broken family, the value of lost trust, the cold, hard sum that replaced warmth and belonging. I used some of it to secure my own future, to build a life truly independent of them, free from their manipulation and debt. But the emotional cost was immeasurable. Sometimes around the holidays or when I smell pine, I remember the carols, the gifts, the empty space where I stood. I remember the look on their faces when they unfolded that deed. Freezing, utterly blindsided. They thought they were so clever, so safe in their deception. They never imagined the quiet one, the dependable one, the one they thought they could walk over, would have the strength, the evidence, and the cold resolve to turn their own weapon back on them. I saved the house once. And when they tried to use that act of salvation to destroy me, I took the house to save myself. It's a cold kind of victory. But it's mine. If this story hit close to home, if you've ever had to fight for yourself against the people who should have protected you, I see you. Drop a comment with where you're listening from and what time it is. And thank you for being here. Subscribing helps bring more of these stories to life.